Hello and welcome to the Empowered Couples Podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is coming off the back of a few days ago, 3 things women need to work on in marriage right now.
Right. So we covered what men can work on. Make sure that you listen to that episode. Also very insightful. And today it's about the women. And look, I'm included in these things. So as we go through them, we aren't coming from this stance of like, we have this all figured out and we do this perfectly. We also take this feedback for ourselves, right? And these are things. And again, we get this a lot from the conversations we're having every single day with couples. So if you hear 1 or 2 of these, you're going to know you're not alone in this. And it's about us looking in the mirror and how can I be better today? It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you. There's nothing to feel guilty about. Life is always presenting us opportunities to say, oh, you know what? I could be better at that. It doesn't mean that you need to feel guilty, right?
It's funny that you just bring that up because sometimes I feel like I don't want any more opportunities.
More feedback.
To grow. But I heard a quote recently that we don't come here as souls actually to grow because that's inevitable. There's nothing we can do about that. That's just like a fact of life in a sense. We could fight it, we could resist it, and sometimes I think I do. Like, oh, there's been too many things. But at the end of it, growth is going to happen. So whether you're in a place feeling challenged, and I'm speaking of this coming off the last episode for men, maybe you do feel like in a more challenging situation. And there's been like a couple back to back, and you're like, oh man, I'm so tired of this. There's opportunity in that one too. And then so now for the women, I'm excited to hear where you lead us on, yes, what types of growth is almost inevitable, if you will, for women in this season.
Yeah, so the first one is giving our partners a chance to also be heard, not negating what they share. And this was one you brought up, Aaron, from having multiple conversations with the men. We talk to the couples in between our sessions when we work with them on an ongoing basis. And he said, he being you, it's interesting. They both said almost the same exact thing when I was talking to them, which is, I feel as though it's often about how she's feeling. It's like she gets to be heard. She talks about her feeling. I'm feeling this. And then when I go to share, it's negated or it's invalidated or it has to be a different time. I can't bring it up then. It's never a good time, or it makes them feel bad. That's another key part is like, I'm afraid to bring it up. I actually read this in an email from a client today. When I'm afraid to bring it up because I don't want her to feel sad or upset. I feel as though it always does turn into that. So this is one I've had to work on. And you actually brought this to my attention, I'd say a few years ago. It was a big one that I was working on up until I think I've been better this year. I hope you agree.
Yeah, I mean, totally. Based on what we went through, yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, is you getting a real chance to share, because I often did make it mostly about what I was feeling, and hear me out, hear what I'm feeling, listen to me, and then you'd go to share, and I would take it personally, and I'd get, more sensitive about it. And you said, hey, can I get a chance? Like, can it be about me and my feelings for now? Do you want to add anything to this one?
It's really in the same thread, but there were even other couples that we work with in which the male partner was actually saying something similar without using the same words. It was really hard to talk about finances, and it still is. And every time that subject gets brought up, gets shut down in a way, or his partner is reactive and starts to become avoidant to the whole topic and subject. And so it's not exactly the same saying, I don't get to feel understood, but in a way, he is saying, I can't even share about how finances are for me or how I'd like it to be for the family in the future, because there's not even the space for it. It's completely shut down and avoided. So, very similar-ish, where the need, I think, is still the same. Man, when do I get to just share? And there's things going on for me too, but I can't bring it up because then you, whoever the female partner is, just react.
Yeah, and a common mistake, quote unquote, that couples can make is talk over each other or feel as though you have to battle to be understood, rather than what you'd want to do is take turns. Okay, if we're going to discuss this matter at hand, okay, you share how you're feeling. And you know what? Let me make sure I fully understand you, even if it's different than my experience. And then if needed, let me share my perspective. But I think the takeaway from this first thing that women can work on in marriage right now is if your partner opens up and shares themselves, which I hope you'd want more of that, right? You'd want them to be able to open up, be vulnerable, share the things on their mind and their heart, then really let it be just about them. Don't try to make it about you. Don't take it personally. I know that's hard because it can trigger things inside of us, like feeling guilty. There can be a lot that comes up, but try to just focus on them and make it only about them, and really pay attention, because if you want your partner to be more open with you, then all of the opportunities where they are, you want to embrace it. Not make it wrong, not fix it, not change it, not negate it with your feelings and taking it personally. Just make it about them being understood. So that's a big area that women can work on right now. Now, going into the second thing women need to work on in marriage, I want to preface this one with saying that it doesn't mean you would bypass important things or just let everything go. But the second thing is giving your partner the benefit of the doubt more often. You know, a little bit more grace, a little bit more letting the smaller things go. Again, not bypassing what really matters, but we, including myself, we can be very detail oriented. We remember a lot. We pay attention to patterns and details, and sometimes we can be a bit more critical and almost like we keep score a little bit more. We pay attention, we keep track. And so this one is about how can you just have a little bit more grace? How can you let the little things go? And Aaron, do you want to introduce the term that we use to distinguish what's really important from what's really not that important?
A blip.
A blip. Yeah, explain it further.
Do we put this in the argument hangover?
It is in there, yep.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
So again, as you said, it's not stepping around the places where true repair from things in the past need to happen. And then when something comes up, if that's a recurring thing from the past that's not repaired, that's not the situation we're talking about. And then also just knowing that when you have a low love account, that you're going to take smaller things more personal, or it will feel more significant. So I'll just put out there this term, then the blip, with the context of a love account. You need to pay attention to that as well. But we are able to say to each other, hey, that was just a human blip moment.
Mm-hmm. A blip being just like a small, little mistake, right? Just a small little error.
And it could be in a tone that we used. Mm-hmm. It could be in a statement that we obviously made. I think that's probably where we use it the most. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're like, oh, that's just a blip, and it was because I didn't keep my word around something necessarily. But I think those things just in passing, I would say, during the day, the interactions in the home, maybe you just walk by and forget to give them any acknowledgement or, as I said, a tone and attitude. So we say, hey, sorry, that was a blip. Or if it does start to feel like it's becoming something, I'll even ask you, hey, is it possible it was a blip for me? Can you just accept that as a blip?
Right. Yeah. And it's helpful because if I just focus on the blips and just how can I just bring more grace here? Can I just let this go? It allows me to not get stuck in the moment and kind of ruin an hour. If I can just take a breath, okay, that wasn't a huge deal. Let me have compassion. Let me have grace. Let it go. Move into the next moment, because we have so much life available to us. But if we just hyper fixate on every little way things are said and how they're acting, and we can just lose out on a perfectly good day. And so even when you and I think of what's coming to mind is when we're out and about and maybe we're doing errands or we're trying to do things, there can be times where because you're a very like logical driven, I want to fulfill on this action thing. You can
let's get in the store, let's get the stuff done,
right.
Let's not linger, let's get out of here.
Right. I can sometimes feel like an edginess from you. Like it almost feels like sometimes you say things a little sharp. And if I were to like hyper fixate and make all of those things a thing, we would always be bickering and, you know, frustrated, and I'd be pointing those things out. But it's like, okay, you know what? Let me understand your personality type a little bit. Let me just let that one go. Grace, you know, and of course, I'm not going to let it go on all day or for multiple days. I might say, hey, could you just speak a little bit more gently or something like that? But in the moment, I can just let some of the small things go. So that is the second thing that women need to work on in marriage right now. Now, before we go into the third one, as we said on the episode for men, what's really missing for a lot of couples is having the tools and skills to overcome a lot of the common challenges. And we love that you're listening to the episode. Keep listening to our podcast, please, and write a review, actually, if you enjoy it. We love reading those. However, don't stop there, because we see a lot of couples relying only on listening to podcasts or looking at Instagram posts. And that's a great place to start, but the real work is in doing exercises together, in practicing. And that's what we really cover in our Communication Mastery bundle, where you're going to actually watch us, not just hear us, watch us model things the wrong way, the right way. We're going to give you worksheets to go through it yourself, to practice, and different methods of having accountability for the tools and skills that you're going to be focusing on related to communication, related to even conflict. So if you haven't looked at it before, go and look at our Communication Mastery page, which is onlinecouplesworkshops.com/communication mastery. I know that's a long URL, so you can also click the link in the show notes, but take advantage of those resources. It's at a great price point, and we want to make sure that all of you know that that's available to you.
Yeah, you're going to really start to contemplate on and be able to just even throughout your day, because we give you a bonus on the go course to really sink into these new tools and start to practice them. I remember a friend of mine saying, and it's a small investment, right? It's just get your foot in the door. And he said, you know, dollars and money are really just the way you vote for the future that you want.
Ooh, that's so good.
I mean, something I'm even stepping into in my life in general. But yeah, I mean, we have to like pay for things. We have to use money, but how? For the future that we want. Mm-hmm. So I'm voting for that future. And so, yeah, I just encourage you, like, have you been voting for the future marriage that you want?
I love that so much. And that's a great way to do it, is having that program. Now let's go into the third thing that women need to work on in marriage, and that is expressing needs more proactively and clearly. Of course, this one could apply to anybody, of course, right? But we are speaking to the women right now, and definitely an opportunity for women, myself included, to pause, to reflect, to say, you know, if I'm frustrated with my partner, what need is there? And have I expressed this need to them? And not waiting for it to become a weed, right? We say that an opportunity in marriage is to express things when they are seeds, small, you know, the small beginning of something before they've grown into weeds where it's bigger and there's more frustration and more energy and emotion behind it that you then have to work through as a couple to express these seeds with your partner. And so that takes being self-aware. That takes not just going about your life and then all of a sudden you're like, I am pissed right now. Why? Like you got to have some awareness. And so it's checking in. And that's why meditation is really powerful for me, because what I've been doing is actually putting my hand on my chest and asking myself, Jocelyn, what do you need right now? And that's need from myself, not always you too, right? Because it's not just about you fulfilling my needs as my partner, but for myself, what do I need? You know what? Actually, I think I need some quiet time. So you know what? I am going to request that. I'm going to request that you sit with Sky for a bit. Or you know what I need? I need some quality time together. So let's get my mom to take care of Sky and let's go out this weekend. And so checking in on what we need, I can then express it to you without expecting you to just know that. You know, like, A big one that I had to work through from when I was much younger in my earlier relationships was, if you loved me enough, you would do things to like make me feel special, like just surprise me with flowers, just surprise me with these spontaneous dates. And that doesn't mean you may not do those things here and there, but you're walking around as my partner in your own life, in your own world, from your own framework. And so for me to think that you're like just going to anticipate those things when our life is always changing and there's always different things going on, that's not really that fair or realistic. Again, doesn't mean you can't do those things here and there, but for me and for all of us women to reflect more often and express our needs more proactively as seeds, not weeds.
I wanted to ask you why you feel this is the one that you put forth for women to work on. But before that, it just really makes me think of the episode that we did 2 ago, which I think was the most that's gotten listened to in 1 week than any other episode. And that was about the biggest mistake in communication that turns simple conversations into conflicts. Mm-hmm. And that is, really misunderstanding expressing versus asserting. Mm-hmm. And expressing is just verbalizing, let's say, a complaint or what you're upset about, where what we're inviting all the listeners into is you're asserting, meaning really being clear for yourself first, obviously. Well, maybe not so obvious, but you have to be clear for yourself on what the need is that you really have, mm-hmm. and then making a request. And so your communication is used as a request around your need, again, rather than just verbalizing complaints. Mm-hmm. So for you, why is this the big one that you put forth for women to work on?
I think I just have been observing with women more recently in our sessions is just maybe after a few years of the partnership where they weren't getting the response that they wanted from their partner, or they were met with defensiveness, or it's been a more challenging season, they started to withdraw or to express their needs less often. And that was building into resentment. So it's more so just an observation of something I've made with women. Could, again, very much have said the same thing for men as well. But that's just one thing I've been hearing. Now, again, the intention of this episode and the 3 things that women need to work on in marriage right now is not to have you feel guilty or that something's wrong with you. Life is always about just how can I be better today? And these are reminders for all of us. You're not alone in this. So we hope that this has been insightful. If you haven't already, make sure you listen to the episode on 3 things men need to work on, because that's also very helpful, and discuss these together, because relationship is so much more powerful when you're able to share with each other, hey, here's where I want to work on things, and here's what I can get better at, and what about you? And being able to set those intentions. That's one thing you and I do with each other often is, hey, I want to do better with this. And it's like, great, I'm so glad we both think of each other. We both think about how we can be better. So hope this was insightful. Hope you're going to have some great conversations. Make sure you check out the Communication Mastery Bundle and all the tools, exercises, worksheets that come with that. And we can't wait to talk to you on the next episode.